I don't know when exactly that the sexual abuse started, but I had told a prefect in school. So all that was made aware of to the foster parents and to the social work. But they had took it that I had made a mistake in the name that I had gave, and they didn't investigate any further. The social work and the police were all of the understanding that I had been abused, but due to the nature of how young I was, and all I would say was daddy dragged my bum and wouldn't go beyond that. It was just decided that not to take it any further.
Would you say there was a cover-up here?
Yeah, I've got all the records now due to my fighting against the system. I received all my social work records, and it's clear that they had known and documented throughout the 3.5 years of their ongoing concerns. And then mentioned they were concerned about our holes in our clothes, we were waif-like, walking deaf, ghastly looking, and then they would say, and there's also a suspicion of sexual abuse in the house, but we don't want to upset the family and ask them.
The woman herself, Claire Greers, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
It's a great honour to have you in the studio today. A very tragic but powerful story. You're here to tell this story of you being a survivor of historic child abuse.
Yep.
And everything that goes into this. But before we go right into your story, if you can speak me through what's going on in the now and the present.
Yeah, well, as you say, I'm Claire for Clydebank. I'm 38. I live in Clydebank with my partner and my 3 kids and my stepson, and I own a wee deli in Clydebank, but that's currently shut now for renovation because that's get more problems than me. And I just recently, in the last 2 years, settled my case against the social work department. I took them to court against all the stuff that had happened to me in my time in their care. And that was settled about 2 years ago. So just ready to get my story out there and hopefully help other people.
It's a very powerful story, as I said, and you come with great fire. So like you said as well, there's a lot of tragic things in here, especially from your childhood, but you're here today, very strong woman, and you're not just speaking for yourself, you're giving other survivors a voice as well, to then speak up and tell their story. So respect to you, Claire.
Thank you.
We'll now take you back to like your early memories, your first chapter.
So I was first received into the care system when I was about 6 months old. With my brother, he was 3.5. Well, he was about 3. And we just went through various different foster placements, and they were still trying to rehabilitate us for us to go back to my mum. This never happened, and when I was about 2, I was received fully into the care system with understanding that I was up for adoption.
So young as well.
Yeah.
What was the first family you went to then? First foster family?
So obviously I've got no memory because I was so young, but I'd stayed in a couple just round about the Glasgow area, and none of them were for any length of time. They were all sort of temporary. I was eventually placed in one with my brother. Again, I've got no memory of it, but they had a bad relationship with social workers, so it broke down, and eventually we were found an adoptive family.
What age are you at this point?
So when we found the adopted family, I was about 3.5, about 3.
Do you have your first memories there?
So I remember going for a visit because they had a big dog, a big Alsatian dog, and then when I went there to go and stay, the dog had died, so I was gutted about the dog, so I've always remembered that. So I remembered the dog, and while I was in there, I remember wee bits. I remember like we used to go to caravans and do different things. I remember my friends for the street. I remember like my wee nan and papa and my cousin that I had when I was there. So
was this in the Cumbernauld area?
This was Shettleston area.
Shettleston?
Yep, Shettleston.
What was the name of that first family?
So they were the Cairnseys.
The Cairnseys?
Yeah.
And how long were you there?
So I was there for about 2 years. I ended up having to leave due to the adopted dad sexually abusing myself. But I wasn't, obviously I'm so young, I've got no memory of it. I'm just going off of what was in the records. And that I had said that daddy had dragged my bum. And when they took me for an examination, they found out that I was damaged down below, and I was received back into the care system and placed into a house in a children's home in Airdrie, Torrens House.
And you're only aged 4 or 5 at this time?
So I'm 4, yeah.
And you're back into the children's home?
So we're back into a children's home again. Not really a lot of memory. I just know through being in children's homes when I was older that was a lot stricter children's homes back then.
Do you remember being that young and being questioned by the police? On these?
So I sort of vaguely remember like the police coming in and out the house, and there was just loads of different people there, and it just says like in records that the social work and the police were all of the understanding that I had been abused, but due to the nature of how young I was, and that all I would say was daddy dragged my bum and wouldn't go beyond that. It was just decided that not to take it any further, and that was it.
That's terrible. How long were you in the children's home before you went to the second family?
Yeah, so in the children's home, not for long, few months maybe. I was always in the understanding that I was going to go back to the Cairns household with the dad not being there, and that was really like my first sense of loss, was realising that I wasn't going to go back there. Being so young, leaving my natural mum, I had no memory of that, so my first sense of loss was losing my adopted mum.
What age are you when you then go to, is it the Nevitt family?
Yep, so we ended up going to the Nevitt family in Cumbernauld, and I was close to 5 when I went there.
What's your first memory of the first day? Do you remember that?
Yeah, so we went for a visit, and they had a dog again, so easily bought, and they took me to the shop to buy me sweeties with the older adults that lived in the house. So
how long did it take until you were fully moved in then after that day?
So I think there was maybe about 2 or 3 visits, and then it was decided that they were a suitable family and we were to move in.
And this is now in the Cumbernauld area?
Yeah.
Greenfields, I'm sure?
Yeah,
you told me?
Yep, Greenfields.
So what age are you at this point?
So I'm about 5.
So again, still very young.
Very young.
And you've already dealt with abuse by this time.
Yeah.
So you're now being put into the care of this family, and that word care, who are supposed to look after you. There's loads in this, so I know you're going to cover a lot about this family. So I don't want you to try and get too upset or rush through it. So just in your own time, if you want to take it in stages and steps, really telling the real story here. Of what really happened.
Yep, so I first moved into the household, and there was 2 older brothers and 3 older sisters that already lived in the house. It was a really, really busy household. We all had to share rooms and stuff like that. I shared a room with the oldest daughter that was in the household, and she was an adult. So I wasn't allowed any toys or anything in my room. I had loads of toys from the Cairnsies, and wasn't allowed any of them in my room. They were all placed in another room, and just felt from the start that there was just issues with the family. It didn't take long before they proved that they weren't going to care for us, and that they were only really in it just for the financial gain that foster carers get.
So would you say the parents in the house were turning a blind eye to what the older sons were doing?
Yeah, to start with, turning a blind eye, and then that escalated into them doing their own types of abuse. So by the time that we've left there, every adult in the household was doing some sort of abuse to the younger kids that were in the house, the younger foster kids. So it just progressed a lot throughout the time there.
Are you willing to speak about some of the horrible things that you and the other kids had to endure in this house?
Yep, so I don't know exactly when. When we lived there, there was physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. I don't know when exactly that the sexual abuse started, but I had told a prefect in school. So all that was made aware of to the foster parents and to the social work. But they had took it that I had made a mistake in the name that I had gave, and they didn't investigate any further. And that was very early on in the placement, 1992.
So see, you spoke to me earlier before we started the episode,
Yep.
and you mentioned the person's name who's now in prison for other crimes. Are
Yep.
you willing to reveal that on the show?
Yep, so he's called Stephen Nevitt. I know he's from the Cumbernauld area, and he was also known as Stephen Howie. That was his name before he was adopted to the Nevitts, before he was adopted out. So he had been abusing all the younger kids in the house, and this had went on and prolonged for years and years.
Because I know with his, was it 6 years he's received recently?
Yeah, more recently. When he got jailed for abusing me and my brother, he was received 2.5 years, which is a pathetic sentence for what he'd done, but he'd pled guilty. So he was given 2.5 years. More recently, he's been jailed again, which I'm quite proud of, due to my fight for justice against the social work department. It unearthed information that he hadn't been convicted of every child that he'd abused. He'd only been convicted for me and my brother. So the girls that he hadn't been done for had then got information from me, used it to go to Procurator Fiscals, go to the police, and last year he was resentenced to 6 years and 9 months, which again, pathetic sentence, but it's a lot better than the 2.5 years that he got previously.
No, definitely. Would you say there was a cover-up here with the social work?
Yeah, I've got all the records now due to my fighting against the system. I received all my social work records. And I'd actually received them when I tried to sue them when I was 18. And it didn't work out. I ended up having a time bar and I couldn't go to court anymore, so I ended up getting from the social work all of my evidence, all of my records, and it was loads and loads of evidence about what I had said, what they had said, and it's clear that they had known and documented throughout the 3.5 years of their ongoing concerns. And then mentioned they were concerned about our holes in our clothes, we were waif-like, walking deaf, ghastly looking, and then they would say, and there's also a suspicion of sexual abuse in the house, but we don't want to upset the family and ask them. So there was loads of signs that they knew, they were documenting that they were going to meetings with 10, 12 professionals all around a table, talking about me and my brother, talking about what was next for us, what about our care, and they were discussing these issues and documenting them all in their minutes, and they weren't acting on it. So we were left there for 3.5 years with the abuse continuing throughout the whole placement and getting worse.
That's disgusting. So they know these people are abusers?
Yep, they know. And what's come out during the trial was that they knew that they were abusers before we moved in. So we should never ever have been placed there in the first place. And I mean, it wasn't just the sexual abuse, it was we were getting starved, we weren't getting food, we weren't getting clothed properly. And they were noticing all of this and they weren't acting on it.
How many kids were in the house at that time?
As I said, they were all mostly adults by this point. I had myself, my brother, and adopted sister Michelle, who was the same age as my brother. And then they had Christine, who was 13 when we moved in, Colin, 15, Samantha, 17, and Stephen, 19. And that's what age they were when I first moved in.
So he was in his early 20s when he was committing these crimes against children?
Yep, so he'd been abusing young girls in that household since he'd been 15. And that they had actually told of this abuse when they were younger. But again, it was just taken that they had made a mistake and nothing was done. So when I've moved in years later and I'm now making my allegations about what's happening to me, why is 2 and 2 not getting put together? That people have already said the same thing about this house. How does this new wee child who's moved in know this? They've never put 2 and 2 together. So there's loads of opportunities where they could have prevented the abuse, but to be honest, we shouldn't have been there to begin with.
It's terrible from, as I say, a system that's supposed to protect people. Instead, they're putting you into the hands of these monsters. Yeah, and it's affecting your life.
Yeah, and when I've got the records, it's just to see the total breakdown and failure of the department when, I mean, I've got a letter, I know you're going to link some of my paperwork and all that, because it just shows the bigger picture of exactly what they knew, what they were documenting and what they weren't acting on. So in the records, it would say...
Take your time. It's all good.
So in the records, they were always documenting all the different stuff that wasn't right with this family. And as I said, they weren't acting on it. They would say stuff like, and like I didn't like Stephen, as I would compare Stephen to my old adopted dad. I had no time for him and that's who I compared him to. And again, I'm just saying it's another massive red flag. I'm comparing this adult male who's living in my house as it reminds me of my old adopted dad who had abused me. And it was like, again, that's another sign that's missed. After a year in the household, I was taken to Monklands Hospital and I was kept in there for 12 days. I was retaining my urine and my faeces, and they had said that I had to go in to get evacuated and everything else. So I ended up in the hospital for 12 days, and during the time there, the nurses and everything had noticed that with my nightmares, and I wouldn't go to the toilet in case bad men were there and all that, that they were concerned that I was going through abuse at this moment. So it was decided that I could go to a child psychiatrist. And it was documented clearly throughout that the foster family were completely against this and done every single thing in their power to stop me going to the psychiatrist and stopping the family visits to try and get to the bottom of what's happening in the household.
So they were doing anything in their power to stop this coming out?
Yeah, everything in their power.
You think someone in the social work would have done their job? Mm-hmm. No, because they're just as guilty as the abuser in my eyes. If they are handing kids back into a household where they know there's monsters, there's paedophiles in there. Mm-hmm. So how could anybody hand kids back to a household like that? And then they have to endure and suffer years more of abuse.
Yeah.
It's terrible. See, before we move on in the story, is there anything else that you would like to say about this family?
Yeah, just sort of more on touching on the social works cover-up. When we were supposed to be moved, I mean, throughout the 3.5 years, there was plenty of opportunities where they could have moved us. The two departments that were dealing with us, they had a fallout with each other. And I've got the paperwork, which I know that you're going to show some of it, where after so long I was having no visits from foster carers, nobody dealing with us, everything, and I mean the house did really get worse at that time. We were getting kept in our rooms with no food for longer periods of time because there was nobody coming to visit, nobody coming to check in. And they had actually wrote on the records to say that they're very sorry about the disagreement between the two departments, that they weren't doing what was in the best needs for me and my brother because of this disagreement, and they wanted the two departments to fall in so that they could do what was best for me and my brother. And I thought, so we were just getting left to rot in this household where you know abuse is happening. You have known before we've moved in. You have now known what I've said has happened. You've got psychiatrists and other people that are familiar with the family that are saying that this family is a risk, that we're not safe in the house. They're saying that the dad was sexually aroused when they're talking to him about kids being abused. The stuff that they were documenting about this family was disgusting, and due to a fallout between two departments, we were just left there for that abuse to prolong. And over time, been in there, obviously getting abused, I was damaged down below. I would have to go for medicals where you would have to go for medicals. When you're in care, you need to go for a developmental medical. So I had a medical coming up and I had been damaged down below where I was bleeding. Now that foster mum had made up that I had self-abused myself as a child, and that's why there was blood in my pants, and she had a thread of conversations over a week with social workers where she was doing everything in her power to get me out of going for this medical that I need to go for, and it was because it was going to be uncovered that I was damaged down below. And it's like, they documented that they were concerned on why she was trying to get me out for this medical, why she was saying that I only feel comfortable being in these appointments with her, when every other professional saying that I am happier, I'm more myself, I'm not getting silenced when the foster carers aren't there. So it's like there's loads and loads of opportunities throughout the 3.5 years where they could have stopped it. They didn't stop it. They documented it. They made up lies about me abusing myself. And when we went to a panel to leave this house, they went to that panel telling them that there's no adverse reports from this household. Everything's been fine for 3.5 years, leave them there. Now, I've got these records now. Like, they existed before the panel. So all the records were there. How can they say that there's no adverse reports from this household where there was nothing but adverse reports? There's never one time saying we were thriving, we were happy, we were well looked after. We weren't. And they tried to get us to remain in that house, which I just think, how sick.
It's so tragic. You know, you're only at that point 6, 7 years old
Yeah,
at the end.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
rare time with that family. What happened then for you to then leave that house? How did you get away?
So the panel, 8-hour panel, the biggest panel to date at that time. I don't know if there's been any other bigger panels since then, but at the time, I mean, there was a big complaint that went in about that as well, because we'd been left there for 8 hours with little refreshments while they made decisions, and that is why it was the biggest panel ever, because the social work weren't telling the truth. They went in there and said, look, we've noticed this, we've noticed that, and also we suspect that sexual abuse is happening in the house. I mean, they would have an 8-second panel. It took 8 hours because they were in there lying through their teeth saying there's no adverse reports. At the end, after the panel done all they had to phone different people that had wrote reports for the courts and for the panel and ask them, like, what did you mean by this and what did you mean by that? And a lot of them had said about the issues. So yeah, after 8 hours, it was decided that we would move in with the new family that had been found, which was the Greers.
So were you held in the children's home again for a short period of time or anything?
No, they returned us to the Nevets after the panel.
Joking?
Mm-hmm. Returned us to the Nevets after the panel to get our stuff. And I watch all these documentaries and all that now. So I just thought that was their opportunity to kill me and David, because we were there, we were being silenced. And now that this family's done everything to stop us speaking, and now we're going to leave them and they're not going to have any power over what we say going forward. Like, we were at a very, very big risk at that time.
That's so bad.
So bad.
Do you remember the day you left that house?
I do. I remember leaving. I went round all the neighbours to get money.
Did you?
They were used to me going for my ginger bottles and that when I lived there. So
you're only about age 7 at this point, aren't you?
Aye. And we did. I mean, that's when we were in the Nevets. It should never ever have been like that. They were getting enhanced money for us, double money, for looking after us, and we were going about the streets looking for ginger bottles because we had nothing. And that's just the way it was. So I went round all my wee neighbours saying bye to them. I was pretty upset saying bye to my wee neighbours, my wee pals that I'd met, and they'd all gave me £1, 50p and all that. I think when I went to the new house I had about £8. I was like, yes!
Back then, £8 a lot of money.
Oh, a lot of money.
Not that I'm saying about your age there, Claire, but that's what I'm saying. So you're only a kid. You know, I could never imagine my childhood memories being like that. Yeah. You know, because the damage that it then does moving into teenage years and adulthood that we'll talk about later on in the episode. Mm-hmm. So going from there, you've already experienced so much trauma. So moving into a new family, you deserve to be happy, you deserve to be looked after, but it wasn't to be that way. It was to continue on and maybe even be worse. Yeah. So you've moved to, was this in Clydebank?
Yeah, this is where my Clydebank connection comes from. I moved to Clydebank and moved into the Greers, who at the time lived in Mount Blow Road, just a wee small house up at the top of Mount Blow Road. So moved in there. I remember going for the visit there as well.
Was that good? Do you remember a good memory?
So the family in itself had two older kids, and as far as I was concerned, that they had good lives and that they had been brought up the right way. I mean, I didn't know. I've heard stories like after, and that wasn't the case. But my belief was that they'd brought the two up, and I mean, they've went on to have really, really good lives. So it looks really good for them. And then they had got 2 other kids, who was Tracy and Anthony, and both of them had needs in their own way. Anthony was very abusive, very aggressive, and Tracy had the age mentality a lot younger. So she was double my age when I moved in. I'm 7, close to 8, she's 14. So I went to visit the room and she said, this is our room and all the teddies up on the wall, they're all for you when you move in, my sister, and the 2 beds. And she said, you can have whatever bed you want, but I'm having this one. Right, so I was getting the other bed. And that was during all the visits. And then, again, they got a dog. They had a dog, wee old Ricky, but they got a new wee dog, wee Zach. He was a wee German Shepherd puppy. So every time I used to go for the visits, I used to go back with cuts all over my hands, because I already had this family set up for us because we were to go for adoption. So we'd already went for our visits and all that, and then the panel was to decide whether we would go to them. So whenever I would go for the visits, the dog would bite me on my hat, carry on with the dog, and I'd have all cuts, and when I would go back, the Nevets would complain that the Greers weren't capable of looking after me because we're letting their dog bite me.
So you were going for visits and then having to go back to the Nevets before the move actually was permanent? Was the abuse still happening at this point?
I have no exact memory of.
But you're still surrounded by this?
Any incident. And I know just before we had left the Nevets, I know that Stephen had been jailed for other crimes that was committing out in the community. So as I say, we were there for the 3.5 years. There was a few times throughout that he wasn't there for a couple of weeks or he wasn't there for a couple of months.
And you remember that because
I
it's
just wasn't
different
there.
then?
And then obviously getting older and reading the records, he was going to the jail. So we're living with somebody that's in and out of jail. And again, the social work weren't stopping that.
So you've moved to the Greers. I know you were there for 5 years. Is that correct?
Yep.
How long were you there before the abuse started there as well?
So in the Greers, it just sort of happened straight away as well. It was, and I mean, I suffered less than anybody else that's lived in the Greers.
Right.
So I've sort of been like an advocate for everybody else that lives there because I have seen so much of what's happened to other people, and that's been like a lot of my fights been in my older life, as not settling until this family are held accountable. The other families have been held accountable in some sort of way, but the Greers have never ever been held accountable. So again, as soon as we moved in, just a clear divide between Marie. She would foster childmind as well. So we were moving into a really, really busy household, already had its own issues, and she childminded, so the house was really, really, really busy with kids, and she would always do all attention and everything favoured towards the kids that she was childminding that were going home to their own parents at the end of the day. We were just sort of left to our own devices, and we realised over time that the only way that she could control us was by having our older son be violent towards us and her herself be violent towards us.
So it was mostly violence then? This type of abuse this time?
Yeah. So
how bad did it get?
So we stayed up Mount Blow. I think we were only there for about 1.5 years before we moved to the bigger house. And I mean, the first argument I had with her, I remember she was trying to hit me with a belt, a clear see-through belt, and I ran out the door across to the neighbour's house. And I remember my brother being really, really badly beaten in that house. My brother used to wet the bed. So when he first moved in there, because of all the trauma that he'd been through in childhood, he'd continued to bed wet. So when we'd moved into the Greers and he had to share a room with Anthony, he was wetting the beds all the time and he was getting battered for it. So it got to the point where he was hiding his pants. So whenever he would wet his pants, he made a hole behind his bed and he would hide all the dirty pants in the hole in the wall. So over time, they found the hole in the wall with all the pants on it and they get leathered. I mean, Tony battered him, Marie battered him, Bill battered him. He got really, really, really leathered for peeing the bed. The Nevets wanted to paint a picture that there were these kind people that were in love with each other. I mean, the mum and dad weren't even in a relationship. They had fell out due to him having an affair with the next door neighbour previous to us all getting kids, but they kidded on. They were in this loving relationship so that they could get children, and they didn't have any love to give. They slept in separate beds. They hated each other. Bill was never there. He was either in the pub or he was at his work. And Marie could only control all the kids that she was having in the house through violence.
Is this the house that you told me? I'm sure there was so much there. Like you were locked in your room. The doors were tied shut.
No, that was in the Nevets.
Oh, was it?
So in the Nevets.
Right, there you go.
So in the Nevets, and they used to take out their older kids, and we would be left in the house with the alcoholic mother, Joan. She was drinking all the time, and we would run across to each other's rooms and carry on, and then eventually she would tie the room doors together with ties. So
I was getting mixed up between the two households, but I know. That's what I'm saying, because that itself, you know, you're not just, there's sexual abuse, there's violence towards you. So you're growing up very quickly. As you said, you're very streetwise, you become an advocate for other kids, you're fiery, and this would then create the character into your teenage years as well.
Yeah.
But staying on the story of the Greers, is there anything else you'd like to speak about to get the story out there?
Yep, so when I first moved into the Greers, I had told again about what had been happening to me in the Nevitt household, and Marie had contacted the police and the social work, and this time they had eventually done an investigation about what had been happening in the Nevitts. So I had gave very, very graphic detail of things that no child should ever know about. And they knew from that the abuse had definitely happened. They'd spoke to everybody else that had been in the house, and again, just like the time when I told the prefect in school, everybody denied that the abuse was happening. But due to my interview with the police, they just really pressed on the others that had been in the house, and eventually most of them have admitted the abuse that had happened to them. And that's when Stephen got his sentence. I was already left the house when he got the jail. And I thought that meant that when we stayed in the Greers that they were going to be more of like protecting us, because they had helped me fight this case. But again, I just feel as if it was purely just so that we could be problem children. They can get the finances to help along with that, and we're not actually getting the help that we're supposed to get.
So see, growing up there in the Clydebank area, going to school and stuff like that, what was that like for you then?
School was a struggle for me, and I say this all the time, that's probably where I carry my most shame and embarrassment from. How I acted at school, I just look back and I'm like, oh my God. And now just being an adult and just knowing what I know, if I'd got the help and support and the therapy that I should have got after being through what I'd went through in the Nevets, that I probably could have got on a lot better at school. So yeah, really, really chaotic time in primary school. Suspended for primary school. I mean, there's not many people they wait at the high school before they get suspended.
I got suspended in primary school as well. It's all right.
Yeah.
High five for that one, Claire.
And it was stupid stuff like going out on the school roof. I always had to take somebody with me, so I was putting somebody else in danger.
You were on the school roof? What were you doing up there?
So I just decided I was going to climb out on the roof, and I took one of the other girls with me, and then they had said like that I had...
Is this in primary?
In primary, that I had put somebody else in danger because I took them with me, but I don't know why to be alone up there.
So you were suspended in primary school, but this is the thing, how else are you supposed to act? We spoke about this previously as well. It's like your whole childhood, you've not had any real love. One's really cared that much. All it is abuse. So you're going to act out. Any kid, anybody, any survivor.
And lashing out and hitting people. And in primary school, I remember one time I got into a big fight with some of the lassies, and we went in the next day, and there was like 7 mums all lined up outside the school office with all their veins with scratches all over them.
Were you fighting with them all?
Aye, because I had been fighting with them all in the cloakroom, and I just used to be like... Aye, so it was like they were all coming in and all the mums were lined up. I had scratched the skin off with all their veins, and I was like, oh my God. So a lot of parents didn't really understand. They didn't know like what I had been through as a child or anything, or why I was acting the way. They just see you as you're a bad child and you're hurting your kids. So I've spent a lot of time in primary school where the kids, my mum says I'm not allowed to talk to you, my mum says I'm not allowed to play with you, I'm not allowed to hang about with you. So I spent a lot of time in school sort of with not really a lot of people talking to me. And that was obviously really hard as well, because you're not getting it good in the house, and then you're getting into school and you're acting out and you're acting a certain way, and kids don't understand and they just think you're a weirdo.
I can relate to that as well, because I was a bit an outcast in school. But this is the thing, because I've got my own childhood traumas that I'm going to speak about soon.
I know, I can't wait.
Yes, but that's what then, because like I said, I can relate to it, because that's why I would act out against a system. Because I felt like I didn't belong there. I was rebellious right to the end. And I think I always will be, because of the things that happen in childhood, because that sets you on your path. So you're going to, so there's only one outcome in it.
Yeah.
You know, and then you need to suffer again because you're being the bad one. So it's a vicious circle.
It's just a vicious circle, and it just continues.
Definitely. So you're in there for 5 years with the Greers. Is there anything else you'd like to speak about regarding that family before we move on to the children's home?
Yeah, just that it was a really, really manipulative family. And again, now the social worker have now found out that what I had said in the Nevets is now been found out to be true. The man's pleaded guilty. He's went to jail. And they now know that what they've said, that I was abusing myself as a child, and all the different stuff that they said, no believing what I was saying. they never learned their lesson. So when I'm now in the Greers and I'm running away and going to Childline, calling Childline, they're beating up my brother, they're doing this, they're doing that, the social workers still aren't believing me. Now, you have been caught out that you have already made a mistake in the past and that I've been found out that I've always told the truth. So why now when I'm in a new house and I'm telling you that my brother's getting battered, that the household isn't looking after us, why again are you not listening to me and coming and protecting? Now the social work would come to the house, just say I've went and phoned child like, oh, they battered my brother, leather doing this and that, and then they would send a social worker out to the door, and David's all battered, and they're saying, what happened to you? And David's saying, I was fighting at school. We say, all right, that's fine, David, and away would go. And I'm like, again, why are you not piecing together that David has been manipulated, that he's been silenced again and he's not able to tell because he's too scared that he's getting beat up in this house? I'm telling you, but he's only listening to me. And it was just like they always covered up. When we had, you would have reviews, and Marie would get up really first thing in the morning and she would say, oh, let's get up and bake cakes. She would always make the biggest, fanciest cakes for all these social workers. And you're talking like 10 people coming into her living room and we're all sitting there and they're all bigging this Marie up, that she's the nicest wee old lady who bakes all these cakes, and they all just think she's fabulous. And she's telling us before the social work come, oh, that's us, we're planning a holiday, we're doing this and we're doing that. And whenever the social work would come in, we wouldn't be saying, oh, we'd get battered, or this, we're not getting money, or we're not getting clothes, we're getting slagged out in the street. I mean, I was getting called Diodora in the street because I only had one Diodora tracker. It's like my self-esteem and the extra money that they're getting is to build up my self-esteem and to make sure that I'm clothed the same way as everybody else in the school and I'm not less than. And that she was just always not getting us the stuff that we needed, and we were getting slagged out in the street. It's like...
How bad was the beatings?
So as I say, for myself, they weren't that bad. Pulling hair, slapping me in the face all the time. If I said something she didn't like, I was getting slapped in the face. Had a few run-ins with Anthony where it ripped my earring. He'd banged my head off the ground. But the beatings were mostly towards the guys in the house. The oldest son was giving out all the beatings. Started off with my brother. As I said, he was getting battered all the time. I mean, my brother's been battered with ladders for bunk beds, dumbbells.
Sharing a room with him as well?
Sharing a room with him, horrendous.
You're hearing that?
Hearing the screams, hearing just the curdling screams of my brother, just a sound that never left me. I used to cry when I talk about it, but I've just got, as you say, more strength now because I've just spoke about it so long. But going in, there's just blood all over his face, and Marie's taking him down and she's cleaning all the blood from his face, and on a couple of occasions she had to get her older son who didn't live there to come and take Anthony out of the house. And then again, when we've eventually told what's happening in this house and about the violence and the stuff that's going on, the foster mum had said that she had never witnessed any violence in the family. And I'm just like, how can she even say that when she's been wiping up blood? She said witnesses there that have seen her wiping up blood. How can she deny that he was terrorising my brother, terrorising him? He wasn't able to do anything. What had happened with Anthony was that he had a lot of his own issues and he was getting a lot of his own bullying in the street. So he was getting bullied out in the street and he would come in, the biggest in the house, and take it out on everybody else in that house. And my brother sharing a room with him just got it so much worse. I mean, for years and years, even right up until adulthood, I couldn't even look at my brother in the face because of the scars that are all over his face for the beatings that he's got. He's still obviously got the scars now, but now I don't feel like, for years, every time I went to look at him, I just look away because I thought, you're going to get it the minute you look. I just could not believe.
Just bringing back those memories.
Believe what he had to go through in that house.
You said the hearing those screams, it stays with you.
Yeah, it stays with you. And
you've got so much strength now. If anyone's going to start crying, it'll be me first. I know that's for sure. So you're there for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Again, horrific. So you were in the first household. So you've not had a break. This is your whole childhood. You're moving then into age 12, 13, and you get moved then to the children's home. Let me remember the name. Is it, you get it for me?
Blair Vaddock.
Blair Vaddock. So you get moved there. You remember your first day there?
Yep, so leaving the Greers, I'd met my natural family.
Was this before that?
Aye, they had got in touch with us.
Tell me that story first then, sorry.
No, you're fine. They had got in touch with us. My sister had got in touch with me through family finding, and then that just worked out to me being involved with all of my family. But again, my mum was just the exact same as what she was when we were younger. She was just uninterested, just using us for her own benefits. That's going to be away now, we're back in her life, she can get a bigger house, so she was taking us round to look at houses, like to do swaps, so that she could get these bigger houses.
That's your buff mum, is what your real family?
Yeah, my real family.
You came round, I think you told me a story, you get around the chapter door.
Aye, so I'd walked down the street with my nana, and she'd walked by my sister, who I didn't know was my sister, and she walked by and she said, hi Nana, and she went, oh hi Lindsay, and she went, so I walked by and I said, Lindsay, is that my sister, Lindsay? And she went, that's your sister. And I went, oh, who was that she was with? And she went, oh, she goes about with anybody. And I went, all right. And then we're just walking down a wee bit and she went, what would you do if I told you that that was your mum that she was with? And I went, oh. And my dad had said that I'd went round in a wee circle and kicked a lamppost with excitement because I had seen my mum on the street. So we went back to the house and my nana and my mum just never had a good relationship. My nana was just telling me that she had used us for benefits when we were younger. Everything that happened to me in my life up till now was all her fault. The only reason that she got the house that she lives in now is because that was the house to take me and my brother back. She got the house and she didn't take us back, so that was my house. And that I should go up and sort it out. And I had all this paperwork. So my uncle had came, picked me up and dropped me up at my mum's house. And I chapped the door.
Who answered the door?
So I chapped the door and my wee sister Lindsay had answered because she'd seen me the day before. My mum had said to her, that must be my Claire, because she'd heard through the grapevine that I was on the scene. And so as soon as Lindsay opened the door, she went, Claire! And then I went away in and I was giving my mum what for. This is my house and you only got this because of me and you didn't look after me. And she just told me, like, she was just so young and she had her own issues and that my dad had been very bad to her and she just couldn't cope. And I just took her at her word and I just forgave her.
You're only 12 at this point?
Yep.
How do you feel now about that?
Now, I really don't care. I think I've had a lot of forgiveness to my mum for over the years. I don't blame her for what happened. She didn't know what's going to happen, but she's had loads of opportunities in later life where she could have helped and supported me and David, especially after the life that we've had. And she's just never ever done that. And I say I can forgive being a bad mum, but I can't forgive being a bad gran. I've got 4 kids. You've took nothing to do with any of them. You've never reached out to them. You've never asked about them. You've never cared about them. I'll never forgive that. So that's where I get my strength, that that's not my family. Like,
you have your own family now.
Yep.
You have the wonderful Daz, keep you on the straight and narrow. We can talk about that later on.
Yep.
But moving on in the story, we'll now go into the story of the children's home. You're age 12 and there's plenty to talk about in there. So you're going up to, whereabouts was that based?
So I remember the time when they went to took me, I was in, obviously I'd said like my mum was just trying to use this again just to get the benefits and that. So she'd went up to the social work and she'd said that she'd wanted money for my care. And they had said, like, what do you mean? Like, you're not supposed to have Claire. So they had tried to facilitate for me to go back to the Greers, but there was just such a breakdown. And they said when I went back, I was just so volatile. Like, I was refusing point blank. I was not going back to the Greers. So because of my age, wasn't able to stay with my mum. My brother was closer to 16. So he was given the choice. Do you want to stay here with your natural family, or do you want to move to Blair Viaduct Children's Home with Claire? And he chose to stay with my mum. So I was to go to Blair Viaduct on my own.
Right, so you were there yourself?
Aye, so I was there myself and I was I'm not going. And they're like, you're going? And I'm saying, I'm not going. And they're saying, you're definitely going. Like, you need to go. You've got no choice. And I said, how far away am I going to be from my house? Like, and they said, you're only going to be 10 minutes away for where you're, the Clydebank. So I said, right, that's fine. So we went Fairdrie and we've drove through and we've got to Clydebank and then 10 minutes had passed and I'm like that. Are we there yet? And they're like, no, they're there yet. And this continued. And I said, you said it was 10 minutes away from my pals. No, I never. I said it was 10 minutes outside Helensburgh. I said, no, you never. You told me I was only going to be 10 minutes away from my pals. Now I'm finding out I'm going to the middle of nowhere. So it was a bad start when I got into the home, because I was already really, really peed off that they had lied to me, and now I was miles away from my pals, and what was I going to do? So I moved into the home, and just really, really volatile by this stage, just really... Nobody's going to control me. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm my own boss. And that caused a lot of problems.
You told me a lot of stories about being in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that you could expect any teenager at
Yeah.
that point, age 13, moving into that time in your life, climbing out windows, running away. Was there any other worse behaviour?
So I'd got a criminal record before I was 16 on several occasions due to hitting staff. I got done for assault on many occasions, and it wasn't like I was just going up and lamping somebody, but you would get restrained, you would be bad, you would get restrained, and I would lash out and kick out at people and hit people and bite people, and really I was just like a wee animal when I was confronted with anything.
Especially if they're manhandling you and all your life has been surrounded by these horrible people, monsters, abuse. So if they are, as you say in your words, restraining, holding a child down with the arms or whatever, you're going to bite them. You're going to hit back.
Yeah.
As you said, you become a wild animal and you're just trying to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, I could only imagine, when I'm picturing this scenario and these stories you're telling me, it's like being lost because you've not got anybody, really.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to act?
Yeah, and they just think that I'm just a problem child and I'm just in there because I'm a problem, and nobody's took the time to go over my records. I mean, that was like a can of worms. It was just always kept shut. And that was because they wouldn't want to uncover the cover-ups and everything else. So on all my life after that, I was always prevented from getting the help that I was supposed to get because nobody was opening this can of worms. It was all to be kept hush-hush. So, I mean, I could have had... a lot of help in the home if they had been aware about what I'd been through, but reading the records now, they weren't aware. They just thought that I was a problem child. I just wanted to cause trouble. I just wanted to be cheeky. And they would say like I would always move the goalposts or whatever else, but I was just wanting to be my own boss, my own person, and they would say that I was involving myself in other people's business. If somebody moved in and they're supposed to get £7 and they're not getting the £7, I'd be up at the office saying, where's their £7? They're supposed to... And they would say, Claire, it's none of your business. And I'm like, but that's their money. Just because they don't want to talk to you doesn't mean that they don't get their money. So they always thought I was involved in everybody else's business and I knew too much. But really, I just felt like I knew the system. I knew the home. So when somebody else moves in, I can tell them the ropes and I can make sure they're all right. And
it's an institution, isn't it? It's like prison for children.
Some people would come in, they would refuse to eat. They'd be on hunger strike when they first came in. But they really wanted to eat, but they were too nervous. So I'd say, I'll sort you out. I used to go and steal them tubs in the tail and spoons. And like, I still talk to a couple of the lasses now and they say, but we're starving, didn't it? For days, and you brought us in a Nutella and 2 spoons. I thought, but that's what I liked.
But that shows you...
So I was always just trying to look out for them, and the staff just always took that as a bad way. I was always involving myself. I was always being cheeky. I was always moving goalposts. See, the thing is, if I knew our entitlements, so like, I would know we're entitled to a takeaway on a Saturday. We'd have a chef that would cook. You'd have a cook in that would cook Monday to Friday and cook big meals for everything. I was so fussy I wouldn't eat any of them. They need to make me something separate. And then on a Saturday you'd be entitled to a takeaway. You were allowed to get your takeaway. So some staff would just come in, they'd just want to be difficult. And they would get your takeaway and they're going to make a burger or something like that. And you're like, you can't cook, you're not the cook. Like we get a... And they would be like, no. And I would know that they're just doing that for badness. I couldn't abide it. So I would just start. And then that would be me in trouble. So it's like they would see it as moving goalposts and I would say, no, I just expect them to stick to what they're supposed to do. I know my rights. And if they don't agree with that, then I was just lashing out and I really, really didn't know how to control myself.
I know that they used to make the rules up as they went along to try and get an easy life. You can understand it on both parts.
Yep, definitely.
Were you allowed to smoke at a young age?
Yep, so obviously I just said I didn't go on really well at school, so moved into high school, didn't go on again at mainstream high school, was chucked out of St Andrews in Clydebank. They'd got a new to head teacher, and me and him just did not get on. So I didn't last long while he was there, and then I moved on to Our Lady in St Patrick's in Dumbarton. Now, quite a funny story, because when I lived with Marie, and as I said, I got my tracksuit, my only tracksuit, the Diodora tracksuit. That's why I was called Diodora in the street. And the way that they used to wear them, they were younger, the trackies, or the girls would wear the big slouch socks. You remember that, up the trackies?
Yes, the Ned style.
Aye, so you would need to wear your Nike one for your Nike bit shown, your Adidas one for your Adidas, and your
That's right.
Reebok. And you had to have the 3 signs shown, but I couldn't do my own socks. So I would need to get the girls to come along to my house and fix my socks.
I couldn't do mine either.
We could all go out. So they'd all had the socks for ages, and I was a wee bit late in the day getting the socks. And then I moved to the school in Dumbarton, and I've got my socks. So I wore the socks the way they wore them in Clydebank. Well, nobody wears socks like that in Dumbarton. So I was known as the sock girl for my few months that I was in Our Lady in St Pat's. That was in the fashion done at Dumbarton. So I was getting slaughtered. And I was just known as the sock girl for my time there. Moved, didn't last long in there, just dogging school all the time, going away, just drinking, smoking, getting into trouble. And then get moved to the Good Shepherd in Bishopton, which is a more behavioural school. It's got residential, so people live there. But as I was in the home at this point, I got a taxi there every day and back.
What was that like?
So that was really good, and that's where the smoking, when you were asking about the smoking,
Oh, that's
when
where
you
that
went
was.
to that school.
Oh, it was a school then, you were allowed to smoke?
So you were allowed to smoke as long as you get parental permission when you're 14. You were allowed to smoke. So I'm sure when I moved into the school, I didn't have permission yet. So I was maybe 2 weeks off of getting my permission. And then once I became 14, because he had adopted me, she was able to sign it. So I asked her to sign it, and she signed it. So I was allowed to smoke. So that was really weird to smoke in school. But again, you just push the boundaries. They would say to us, you're having 3 fags in your school day. So you would have 1 in the morning when you get in, 1 at break, and 1 at lunchtime. But when we wanted 4 fags, 5 fags in a joint, so we were still sneaking out. So into a lot of trouble again in that. But I really benefited in that school from the smaller classes. All the teachers you called by their names. You called them Jason and Claire, and well, you never, because you called her Mrs. Brooke. But the rest of them, wee Smurf, we called her Smurf, and we tiny women, I feel terrible.
So were they changing the strategy in a way to try and get the best out? So you're saying it was a good school and for troubled children, really, that have been abused in care?
Yep, so it was good. It was good for certain things, but it wasn't really good for you. Weren't going to get an education at the end of it, really. I mean, I suppose there would have been people that were there. I don't want to take it away from people that have got an education, but I mean, the majority of classes we would go in, we would just make a deal. Oh, Jason, can you take us up the back roads? We would say to him, because he would take us in the van for the residential, and he would drive us like 100 miles an hour over all the bumps in the back roads.
You're joking?
And I'm terrified of cars now, can you imagine it?
Anything for an easy life.
So we would say, Jason, can you take us up?
He's a teacher.
He was the teacher, and then you would go in, you would say to Holmesy, oh, Holmesy, can you take us to McDonald's for a McFlurry? And he would say, no, you need to get your work done. He was, I think, the science teacher. I would say, please, Holmesy, please, just take us for, I don't even think it was a McFlurry back then, it was a caramel sundae. Please just take us for a caramel sundae. And he would say, look, if you do a wee bit of work the day, when you come in the next day, you can go to McDonald's and get your thing. So we always just did these wee deals with the teacher. Were hardly ever doing any work. We went into art class, she would just, my whole room was all decorated to be every character. She would draw every Disney character, she would draw your stuff. And the only teacher that I didn't go on with was a home economics teacher. And home ec was my thing. But that's when they've realised that I've got an eating disorder and I've got a phobia with foods and contaminated foods and people touching my stuff and can't use other people's knives and stuff like that. So I was refusing to use all the stuff and just getting into a lot of trouble and going and just pulling other people out their classes and just causing loads of trouble. And they chucked me out of there and all. And I'm like, who gets chucked out of behaviour school? But they had enough of me.
Moving on from there into your later teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
When you moved out of the home, where did you go to?
So I went from Blair Vaddock onto you move into a home that's more for like independent living. So you're moving. I moved to Hill Park, which was in Clydebank, and that's a room that's got like a wee kitchen and stuff like that in it, because you're supposed to be getting ready to go out in the big wide world. So yep, I moved there when I was maybe about 15 and a half, and I stayed there for about a year and a half. And
Just yourself? Just
no, it's just, it was like just like another home. But
right, because you're only 15 and a half at this point.
Yeah. So there was still younger people in it, and then there was a lot older people in it, but they were only like 16, 17, and it was just getting them all prepared for going to live on their own when they leave the care system.
When you left there, was that when did you move to Airdrie?
So I left the home and moved in with my partner's mum and dad, and then split up for him, moved in with another partner. And then after that, I just went really, really off the rails, and fell pregnant with my daughter Sophie, and that's when I moved back through Airdrie, once I was pregnant with her.
What age are you at this point?
So when I must have been about 22.
And then, as you said, at that point in your life, none of these traumas have been dealt with.
No.
So all of that's still there. It's still seething. And then if you were to drink or that, the chaotic behaviour would then come out, and you were blackouts.
Every time you drank, you were going to ruin your life, and that was that.
I can relate to that, because that's what would happen to me. If you drink, it all comes up. All these demons and stuff that's not been dealt with, unresolved trauma. And then it just escalates into more trauma because of the behaviour. So how do you deal with that?
I know.
You know, it's very difficult.
I know, and that's how I always try and advise people, and I can advise people, but I always say, see if you've got something bad going on in your life or something really no right in your head, you can't drink. Like I can go out and drink now, and I've still got stuff going on in my head, but it's like, it's just different because my life is just more settled now. But back then, whenever I would drink, I would black out. I wouldn't be aware of what I was doing, and I would only find out about my behaviour in court records or going to courts or people telling you. Like, that's what you're finding out what you've done, and you're mortified. Like people say they get the fear. That is the absolute fear. It's the fear that you don't know what you've done, and then you start to hear it and you're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I just had a really, really... after leaving Clydebank and going to Airdrie with my daughter, that was supposed to be a fresh start. But again, I just felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I just found it really, really difficult. When I've moved through to Airdrie and I'm pregnant with Sophie at the time, I have ended up getting into the homeless unit there. And when Sophie's born, it's just horrendous. It's like I never even had money to heat the homeless unit that I'm staying in. And just really, 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 really struggled with her. Struggled with being a mother because I'm in a homeless unit. I was going to the social work and I was saying to them, look, I've been social work my full life, and now I've got a daughter and I've not got any furniture, I've not got a house, I've got nothing, and how am I supposed to give her a good life? Like, and they were just like, no, you're on your own, so you just need to do it yourself. So I just really, really struggled through. Finally, after being through all the homeless, got my own house. And this is my first time having my own house, being a mother. So I didn't treat it any different. I still had party house and still had everybody in it come party. And I just ended up in a really, really bad situation then, getting into trouble with the police, getting an antisocial behaviour order, and eventually that resulted in them taking my daughter off me.
It's horrific, especially all the stuff that you'd dealt with before that. And then it gets more tragic because you told me a story that you're in here, that your dad is in the area, and you go looking for him. You talk me through that.
Yep, so that was actually at the same time that all the issues were happening, with getting into trouble and with Sophie getting took off me. She'd went to go and stay with her gran. And I'd found out that my dad that I'd searched for had been murdered, and just couldn't believe it. He was 63 and he'd been stabbed to death, and I just thought that it was like he's just getting involved in something that's nothing to do with him, and he's been stabbed one time and he's died just because he's a wee bit older or whatever else. So I'd went to the police and they weren't able to give me any information because when I was born I was called Phyllis. So when they'd say to the family, oh, Claire's want to know information or whatever else, they were like, Claire, we don't know a Claire. So it was all worked out. It was because my name was Phyllis. And they had said he'd actually been stabbed 13 times and just horrendous way to die, and just tortured myself. I never knew him. But anything like that happening to Andy, I torture myself for days and days and days about it. I can't get it out of my head. So being my dad and being that I was trying to meet him, I just felt like it was just so sad.
Especially the timing of it all. Mm-hmm. We're just about to meet him and then that happens.
And I've moved, like, his new house and my new house are like a stone throw away from each other. And actually the first house that my brother had got and he moved out of, my dad had got the house next door. So my brother had stayed in that house. Eventually his dad would have been his next door neighbour. Who wouldn't have known him. The two Davids.
Just shows you how the universe works.
Mm-hmm. Just small world. So we'd ended up really, really close to the area where he was. I just always felt that I just wanted to meet him. And then after that, it was really horrendous because so many bad stories were out there about him. I mean, I don't know what stories were true. So just people were taking to social media and they were just really, really saying all this really bad stuff about him. So I was like, and they were saying like he was a paedophile and that they chopped his bits off and they put them in his mouth, and this was the stuff that people were writing on social media. So I was like, didn't know what to think, what to believe. Like, but when I went to the court case, nothing that I said to the police, why are they all calling him why they say another paedophile dead and all that's on Facebook, and they said, look, there's nothing at all like on his records of anything to do with that. I know when he started a relationship with my mum, he was older. She was underage and he was older. So, I mean, that's not right in itself. So I don't know if Mud's stuck with that. And he's carried that all the way through to he's 63 and he's died, and people are congratulating that.
But it was a total liberty because he was an alcoholic, and the CCTV captured the two people who were then sentenced for the crime, taking him into the shop, using his bank card, and then they murdered him in the house. Yeah,
murdered him in the house. The way it worked out that he'd been in hospital because he'd had a stroke like the week before. So he'd been in hospital for a full week and he'd get out the day before his money was due. So he never had any alcohol. And the next day when his money's went in, they've obviously took him straight down, go and lift out the money, and they've went in and bought the alcohol. And then when he's went back up and he's been murdered, there was no alcohol in his system. So it's like, I can't believe to be an alcoholic all your days and he die sober. And they never killed him straight away. He was left for 5 hours with some stab wounds and some beating. And he was left for 5 hours and they'd went back 5 hours later to complete the job. So I would just torture myself, like, what was he thinking for that 5 hours when he was sitting there? Was he thinking about us and whatever else? And ended up one guy got sent to jail for murdering him and another one got away with it because he went grass against his pal. So his pal got the sentence and he never got the sentence. And
is he free now?
So he's just due to be freed. That's the victim support never contacted me, so I wasn't sure whether he was or not, but working out for the maths, he got 13 and a half years, so he was due to be released last year. And now he ironically is going to be 63, same age as my dad was when he killed him, because he was in his 40s at the time. But yeah, the other one who'd got away with it, when Sophie had been took off me and she'd lived with her gran, I had to travel for Airdrie through to Clydebank to take Sophie out for the day while her gran would go to work. And by the time I would get back to Airdrie, I would need to go to Plains, but the buses and all that would stop at certain times, so it was really, really hard to get home. And I'd bumped into the other guy who was accused of the murder, and he'd went up to a guy in the bus stop and he said, an old guy, and he said, hey, you got a fag there? And the guy said, no, and sort of hurried away a wee bit, and I'm like, just at the tip of my tongue to say, oh, is that another old guy that you're going to bully and batter? But I thought, Claire, just keep your mouth shut. There was quite a few of them. I thought, keep your mouth shut. And then he asked me for a fag. And he said, have you got a fag? And then I just said, what did you do to my dad? And he's like, what? And I said, you murdered my dad. It said, why would the police let me out and give me my £500? It was in my possession. My dad was robbed of £1,000. He's got 500 in his possession that he got back. and the other one who's in the jail must have had his 500 as well. So I said, why would they let me out and why would they give me my £500 back? Davey was my pal, I loved him and all the rest of it. And then he went away up and he said to his girlfriend, and she'd come away down and she said, oh, I heard that you're Davey's daughter. He always said he had kids, but none of us believed him. And I thought that's just so sad that he did talk about us. Do you know what I mean? And obviously just had
got your own problems and alcohol.
Yep.
You know, in my opinion, it's the worst drug of them all.
And it ruins lives everywhere.
Totally. And it's the most accessible out of every.
Yeah.
But like you said...
And legal.
Exactly.
And legal.
It's the biggest killer in the world. You know, and look at all the suffering it causes.
So much.
What age are you when you start to get your life back on track?
So obviously all the trouble that I'd get in Airdrie, I mean I was getting into all sorts of trouble. I was waking up in the cells every weekend. Obviously it resulted in Sophie going to live with her gran, and I wasn't going to break the cycle. The cycle was just going to continue, and I couldn't allow for my daughter to be involved in any system or department after what they had done to me and my brother. So I just really had to toe the line, stay away from everybody that I'd been hanging about with, go to every meeting that they were telling me to go to. Obviously, once all the court stuff concluded, I would have probation and fines and stuff like that, just sticking to everything that I had to do, and got my daughter back. So grateful. And decided, because again, once I've got her back, the social worker have just moved me into these horrible flats in Airdrie. I mean, they've been knocked down now. But again, it's like, you're not moving me somewhere where I'm going to be able to manage. Why not just put me in a nice wee house with my daughter? Why have I got to go with a flat when you know I've got issues with door control, don't know how to say no to people, don't know how to turn people away? So it would just start with people coming to, oh, have you got a tea bag, have you got sugar, have you got this? And I just can't say no. And then they say, oh, we'll just go back there. So I had door going all the time. Just wasn't getting any peace. And again, I was on eggshells now, can't get into any more trouble because you've just got your daughter back. So just trying not to drink. But the odd times I would have a wee drink, I'd end up in trouble. And so obviously Sophie's at her gran's. So I was always just panicking, thinking they're going to take my daughter, they're going to take my daughter. Every time I went out, I thought, something's going to happen and they're going to take your daughter again. So it was just like trying to really just move through to Clydebank, be closer to her family, have more of a support round about us. Because although I was making my own mistakes with drinking and having people in the house, getting into trouble and getting arrested, they were saying that the main issue for me not getting Sophie back when I was fighting for her was I had no support round about me. I was already red flagged because I'm ex-care. So you're red flagged for ex-care with your own child. So I'm red flagged for ex-care, and then I've got no support round about me because I've got no other family. And obviously I had my brother David, but he had his own girlfriend, and my niece is the same age as my daughter, so he had his own stuff. So they said that you've got no support, no family, so it was really harder for me to get Sophie back because of that. So I thought, move to Clydebank, be Sophie next to her family, and then we've got support. So that's what we've done. We moved to Clydebank, and that's where I met Daz.
Where did you meet him?
Well, he stays in my flat. I stayed in my flat. We stayed in the same flat. His dad had a house in the flat, and I had a house in the flat, but we met through a mutual friend.
Because we'll give Daz a shout out because he's such a nice guy, and he's obviously a great partner for yourself, keeps you on the straight and narrow and puts up with all your crazy behaviour, even though you're certainly not crazy anymore, right? Let's confirm that for the audience. But no, it's great that you've got someone there now that really loves you, cares about you. You can see it's such a, you deserve it, you know, after all of that you've been through.
Thank you.
So good on you for that. There's a couple of names here that we need you out before we move towards the end of the story, promoting all your social medias, your business, all of these things, and there'll be other stuff that you want to speak about that I've not asked you, right? But there's names here, right? So you can talk me through the names because I'm obviously get a bit mixed up sometimes. John Swinney, who is that?
Yep, so my grievance with John Swinney is that he was, I think one under Nicola Sturgeon. So he made a lot of decisions, and the decisions to do with the historical child abuse and all that, especially with the redress and stuff like that, it all went through him. So we had to go to meetings in Parliament to try and change laws and different stuff, and it was always him. That would be the chair of the meeting, him and another girl, Claire, who was his right-hand woman. And he had said that he was going to not put any barriers. I mean, he said this on the news publicly, that he's not going to put any barriers in anybody's way towards getting their justice. So I fought with everybody else for this redress scheme. Do you know about the redress scheme?
I don't.
So it was set up. They made a decision on it years ago, but they've only just started paying people out in the last couple of years. And it was decided that they would cap it at £100,000, meaning anybody who has had a bad time in care, been abused, been neglected, they can apply for this redress, and it saves them having to go through going to court or having to have loads of evidence or anything else. It's just more of a straightforward process. So I had fought with everybody else to get the redress. At this point, they were still unable for you to go to court because you're time barred. So I'm fighting with the redress for everybody else. And then I get an opportunity where I can go to court. I can take it the lawyer's route. So that's the route that I decided to go in. I thought, I've got a lot of evidence here that I'm not supposed to have, but I've got it anyway. So I've got my evidence. I need to take it to court. But you can do both. That's what John Swinney said on the news. So that's fine. You can do both. So I still fought with everybody else to get the redress. And then once the paperwork came out for it, it just put a big barrier in the way that you can only seek justice in one way. Now, I've been in loads of homes, loads of departments, stayed in loads of different places. Yes, I'm going to court, but that's against one family. I'm no longer entitled to this redress that I fought for with everybody else. So again, it was like another slap in the face, the government changing their own goalposts, and it wasn't in the favour of the survivors. When they agreed on the redress, obviously I've said they were capping it at £100,000. This was decided long before lockdown. Long time before lockdown, and they've made everybody wait. The same with me with my court case going to trial. I had a set amount what I was suing for. After lockdowns happened, as you know, your shell prices have doubled, they've tripled. So these amounts that are capped at certain amounts, they're not worth their amount anymore after. So again, they just slapped survivors in the face, and survivors get the short end of the stick. The compensation that they were finally getting, that they fought years and years for, when they finally got it, it wasn't worth what it should have been worth. So again, it's just...
No money in the world can compensate for what...
No,
no.
And we've always said it's not about the money, but this late in the day when they've had laws preventing us from being able to get justice. And I mean, if I was able to go forward with my court case years ago before I was time barred, all the evidence would have come up about other people in my files that I could have got charged with different stuff, because I thought, how can I say this? Nobody will believe me. How can I say that? Nobody will believe me because there's been so much. But they were documenting everything. So it's like, if I had got my chance to, there wasn't a law protecting all these people, all this would have come out years ago and people would have got done. So it's like, so many of the bad people have died without getting their justice. They've died with nobody knowing what they were. And so many survivors have died without knowing that they finally got the recognition. They finally got that somebody was listening to them. They finally got believed. And they're finally getting this wee rubbish payment that they have to get to thing it. But it's just the recognition of knowing that they're finally being believed and they're finally being heard. And so many people have died without getting that justice because of the government just dilly-dallying. I mean, we were talking about the historical child abuse and all that stuff long before it came out about all the football clubs abusing people. And you're just watching through the news and they were all getting theirs settled and it was all going through court and it was all this. And I thought, why are the children, why are we always in the back burner? Why is nobody fighting for us? Why are we not at the front of the queue? Like, we're always at the back of the queue. We were the last people to be compensated, and they've still put barriers in the way. They've still tried to prevent people from getting their full justice.
So, the head of the inquiry?
Head of the inquiry, yep.
Susan O'Brien, is that right?
Yep, so she's not anymore. It's Lady Smith, I'm sure it is now.
Right, okay.
But yeah, they set up this inquiry and we would all go and tell our full stories. I mean, the inquiry was terrible in itself. You were in there with judges and lawyers and stuff like that, and they were wanting you to explain everything as if you needed proof for every single thing. You couldn't just say. So I would say, what it says in my records, such and such, and they would say, no, you've got to say it off of your memory. Do you remember that? And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you've got it in the records that you know that stuff happened in that house. It doesn't matter whether I remember it or not. Like, it happened. So you need to...
That's why you record these things.
Yep. So the inquiry itself, I just didn't agree with it. And then the head of the inquiry was...
Susan O'Brien.
So it ended up... Something had happened. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but people, if they're interested, they'll be able to look up and Google. But she had ended up having to leave the job. They either wanted her to leave or she had to leave because something had happened. So she decided that she was going to sue the government for unfair dismissal, and she was suing them for £500,000. And it was as if it was going forward. I know what they ended up. It ended up nothing happened to it. But again, another slap in the face for survivors. This person's come on to try and get us our justice, and we've still not had any justice. And you're thinking that you're going to get your compensation because you're out of a job for not doing something right. And I just think you're going to make it up. You're just going to make it up. And these are the people that are making the decisions, the people that are in charge. And again, I just always feel like the people in care are always on the back burner, and we're always silenced. And it just needs to change. And again, I just from years and years and years, when I've always had disagreements with social work about what had happened, they would always say to me stuff like, "Oh, but Claire, lessons have been learned." So I would be like, "All right, I know it's bad what happened to me, but because of that, they've learned lessons and stuff like this doesn't happen anymore." But it did all still happen. It never stopped. It never changed. No lessons had been learned, and it just shouldn't happen. It shouldn't go on. And the people that are in just now, I got an apology. Obviously, when I got my settlement, I'd got an apology from the social work, and it was a copy and paste letter that they gave the same one to my brother. And we've got different experiences, different things have happened to us through our times in care. Why are we getting a copy and paste letter? So it's just like, they're just no sorry. I had to go for a big meeting with them, and they decided to change the apology letter. So now it would be like a bigger apology letter. But again, it was like, that's the head of the social work just now that has wrote that letter, and she's still saying that she can't apologise for this because it wasn't proven. She can't apologise for that and it wasn't proven, and sorry that I felt that I wasn't safe and that I felt this. And I just expected for her just to stand up and be like, "Oh my God, I've read your records, how horrendous they are. I can't believe that this happened in a department that was supposed to bring up kids, and now that I'm in charge, that sort of stuff would never happen." I want to stand up and say it was wrong, it was wrong, it was wrong. But no, you're still sticking up for them. That's all there in black and white, and you are still no one to say that what they done was wrong. I just don't get it, and I just think there's no hope for kids that are going through the system just now if the people in charge still want to cover things up and not take accountability and not stand up and say that was horrendous and it will never happen in my watch. And that's what I expected for them, but I never got that. And also just seeing with the redactions of the files, I'd got 3 sets of files for my court case, and the third set that we got was fully redacted, so there was no evidence in them. I mean, good job I had set 1 and set 2 that were handwritten and typed up from back in the day, because the new redacted files, which as far as they were concerned, this is all I've got, they'd sieved out all the evidence that was in them. So that means somebody that's working in that department just now is covered up abuse, and it's not good enough. And that's why I just want to stand up, get my story out there. Hopefully more people will come forward, and we just need to make a stance. And when they say lessons will be learned, then they do need to be learned.
Very powerful. Good on you. And as I said, with you sitting there speaking with true power and passion, that's payback, that's compensation. You know.
Yeah, I do feel proud of that as well, because I always say, obviously during my own fight, I've added everybody that I know that had a hard time in the care system. I reached out to them in some capacity and said, "Oh, do you know this redress? Do you know court case? Do you know this? Do you know that?" So over the past few years, the government's had to pay out millions and millions and millions of pounds due to my fight, and that does make me proud. As we say, it's not about the money, but this late in the game, that's only justice that we are getting, and it's hit them where it hurts, really, isn't it?
And it's great as well, as I said, you're sitting there speaking with true power, and you're now with the people that watch this, that have went through similar abuse. I'll give them a voice.
Yeah, I really hope so.
That's what will happen, because it has a snowball effect, and people can try and cover it up as much as they want to protect themselves and protect their friends, but like I always say, the truth will prevail, and these people will be held accountable.
Yeah.
No, so good on you, Claire. It's a very powerful individual. The way you come across, it gets me emotional. Try and hold in my tears. But is there anything else you would like to add before we move towards the end of the episode?
No, obviously there's like a million more things, but we would need about 10 shows.
That's all right.
Yep. But no, just hope that people do watch the show, do see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and just for people that are that this is the time to get your justice. There's so much going on. I don't know what the background plan is, but they're allowing for survivors to get some sort of justice. So just please, anybody just reach out, just get your justice, and like we'll all stand together, and hopefully there will be change.
Very powerful, as I said. But before we finish up in this episode, you can now tell us about your social media platforms, your current business. So it's moving right back into the present time now.
So now I'm just, obviously I've got the deli. I took on the deli. Should never have took on the deli. Everybody says I make good food. So I thought, right, I'm forced into work now because I've got this compensation money. You're no longer entitled to benefit or anything else. So I need to find a job, and I'm like you, like when we spoke before, like I don't get on well under authority and bosses, and obviously there's a Margaret in every workplace, and I don't go on with them. So I was just trying to get myself back to work, but do a job that I'm not going to be like, if one day, I mean, some days I wake up and I just don't feel right. I can't get my bed. I don't like letting people down or whatever else, and then I punish myself about it. So I thought, right, be your own boss. You can make a sandwich, you can cook, and just go down and do that. But I didn't realise like what having a business entailed, and it's just been a lot. But during the now we're shut for refurb, and I'm learning everything that I've done previous not to do this time, and I'll be fine with the deli.
And also when the deli does open, if you want, I'll come down and do a grand opening video for you.
Definitely.
And we'll really promote it all over Clydebank, and because I know, like I said, you're OCD, you're over the top, so I know it's going to be a 5-star, a 5-star deli, and I look forward, because you've made us big platters, sandwiches, cakes and stuff, and like I said, it's always great quality. And it would be my pleasure to come down and promote
I know,
it.
that'd be great, yeah, and we need it.
I might add some comedy to it.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I know I've got some pranks planned for Dad, so you can help me with them.
Not a problem, I'll be right on that. What about your social media platforms? So
I was a Bebo forever, never, until everybody abandoned me on Bebo, and then I had to go to Facebook. I didn't even know how to work Facebook. I used to go and write 14 statuses a day and like my own statuses. That's how much I didn't know how to work it, and I've been there for years and years and years, but that's not where the action's happening. So I've decided more recently to set up a TikTok and a YouTube channel where I'm hoping to put out more of my story, more of my files, and just really go through them. I've got some redacted files that I'm getting unredacted. So I was going to do like some sort of wee live reading them out, so people normally get a laugh and I read my files out. Although you shouldn't, like, I laugh at my reactions to things. So I'm just hoping to just continue with that, and just hopefully people just follow my journey, see what's next. Obviously I plan to set up the organisation. We've been taking the steps for that, and that will be helping people when they're leaving school, leaving care. I know that when I left care there was no help and support out there, and I know now that there's a lot of things, but they're always sort of restricted to how much they can do. So my organisation I want to set up just to be where there's no restrictions to the help that I can give. I can go out there, I can do whatever to help these people leaving care to move forward, to give them the stepping stones that I know if I had, my adult life wouldn't have been as chaotic. And like I said to you earlier on, it's the stuff that happens previous. I can't help them with that because I don't know. But everything after, all the chaos that's came in my life after care, I can help them so that doesn't happen to them. So I'm just really going to get back in my daily and just focus on the doing the organisation and just turning all the bad into good, and just hopefully just help loads of people.
Inspirational, Claire. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a very powerful episode. I know it'll do really well. And like I said, you'll help so many people. So thanks again, shake my hand.
Right, thank you.
And I'll see you again very soon.
See you soon.